Ornette had all this energy, and he was, he would talk music 24 hours a day if you were there to sit with him. One of the things he said he would do was give you these intervals and ask you what they were. So, for instance, he'd say, what's A and B? Now, I got you guys on mute, but you can sort of, what's A and B? And normally, in most musical contexts, A and B is a whole step. You can write me if you have a question about that, but A and B is a whole step. And so you would answer him. You say, well, A and B is a whole step. And he'd say, no, it's not. It's a flatted fifth. So well, what? How is that possible? How is A and B a flatted fifth? It's really a whole step. It's just, 2 half steps from A to B. So he would go through the process. He'd say, so what's the fifth of D? And you'd say A. What's the minor third of A flat? And what's the flatted third of A flat? Well, you'd say B. What's D in A flat? A flatted fifth. And he'd say, you see? It's a flatted fifth. So I don't know if you guys follow that logic. It's sort of, it's a little bit unusual. I mean, you can say, well, that's just semantics. Of course it's not a flatted fifth. A and B isn't a flatted fifth. But again, if A is the fifth of D, which is a fact, and B is the flatted third of A flat, which is a fact, and D and A flat are flatted fifth apart, so that's a fact. So Ornette would often quote Buckminster Fuller. It was a philosopher and scientist and genius, that an inventor and everything, that Ornette really liked a lot. And he would say, if you think there's such a thing as up and down, you're living in the Dark Ages. So this idea of like seeing A and B as a whole step and only seeing as a whole step is really sort of limiting yourself to all the other possible connections and permutations that you could have. You can see, if you see A and B as the fifth of the D chord and the flat third of a B chord, then you have that information now to use for your melodic pathways, your melodic playing, or your harmonic thinking, whatever it is. And you can start hearing differently too. I believe Ornette really heard this stuff, and was able to synthesize these things, which, for me, I would set up ear training exercises so I could try to hear A as the fifth of D, and B is the flat third of A flat, and I would then create lines out of those two different chords, maybe a D major 7 and an A flat minor 7, or a D, or I'd pick some different chords to that you could, maybe a D dominant 7 and an A flat minor. So you can create lines from just A and B, and if you're thinking of A and B as a whole step, that sort of limits your thinking. It sort of makes you play a certain way. So Ornette really opened up my consciousness. Again, this is a very non-rational, non-linear way of looking at things, but it's beautiful, in my opinion. It's sort of really, to be around someone who thought like that was sometimes very enervating and frustrating, because he didn't go from A to B, so it would be A and B, not the pitch A and B, but for the points from A to B. He wouldn't always go in the way you would expect it, and but he would he'd get there some way, and it would be sort of an unexpected result. So There's lots of ways to practice that. Again, you can sort of come up with your own exercises. One of the things that I would do is I'd sort of try to. His mind worked so fast that he would be able to do this to synthesize these different intervallic connections, and as soon as I understood it, well, A and B, well, he'd ask me, what's A and B? And I said, that's a flatted fifth. And he goes, no, that's a half step. Or it's a major third. He would have a different thing the next day, and then he'd sort of show you how that worked. So his mind was really quick and sort of playful. He often did these harmonic little games with us, with asking us what this was, or and really, if you looked at it literally, he would switch it up, say, no, that's not what it is. You got to look at it this way.